Theories proven can also be disproved. The scientific community has declared that there is settled science. Try to convince most scientific minds in the medical field to use fractal math and see how far that will get you. Evolutionists discuss how animals adapt to their environments. Now the common misconception is that evolution was the sole cause for our advancement as a species. It is a well-known fact that there are just as many holes in the theory of evolution as what there are in theology. If we based our thinking on the mindsets of most scientists, which have contributed to scientific progress throughout history, we would still believe that the planets within our solar system are all protected by invisible spheres. Our sun is in the center of the universe, and the Earth is flat. Scientists have constantly criticized anyone who has ever thought outside of the box, yet facts show that most discoveries are found accidentally. The scientific community is a closed society, filled with anonymity and exclusive by nature. For years, esoteric practices have been used to keep information quiet. This goes back to Aristotle, the Dark Ages, and into the Age of Enlightenment. Science first became public when the Royal Society was formed from old Hermetic groups. Eventually, the society developed into what we call science today. For a scientific paper to be approved within the scientific community today, it must be reviewed. These critics either accept or deny the research, anonymously and without ever being identified. Instead of calling Darwin's theory flawed, evolutionists say that it was incomplete or unfinished. The fact is, most of the theories today about evolution don't even come from Darwin. The majority of the research is only incorporated into Darwin's unfinished theory. Just as it was with other theories about the universe and solar system, the theory of evolution evolved. Intentional or not, lack of communication due to the secrecy within the scientific community has created this mistake. Instead of educating the public, false information only seems to come from science, stating that evolution is the fundamentals of natural science, when the fundamentals of natural science is physics, along with both optics and astronomy. This is the result of an ongoing war between physics and evolution, which concerns the age of the sun. Lord Kelvin made his predictions on the age of the sun and was wrong, and scientists today still brand him as a creationist. His estimates of the Earth's age was between 400 million and 20 million years. This number went against what the creationists estimated the Earth's age to be also. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, the debate over whether science really flourished during the Dark Ages arose. Pierre Duhem wrote a book in the 13th century called The History of Science, which fostered the idea that the Church contributed to the advancement of science. The only thing that can be seen resulting from these debates are issues concerning inductive reasoning. These debates were used to also attack creationists. Examples like Petrus Peregrinus de Maricourt show that science did flourish in the Dark Ages. He improved the astrolabe and invented free pivoting compass needles, with inductive reasoning and magnetism. These two things affected society in a major way, allowing us to travel both on water and on land much easier than before. Evolutionists also wish us to believe that humans have been on this planet for 85 million years. That we only began to evolve within less than 1% of that time. We just wandered the Earth aimlessly for 99% of our time on Earth, without learning how to farm the land, build structures, or even how to write. We finally found a home in Mesopotamia though, and went from being hunter-gatherers to farmers that settled in that region. The reasoning for why this took so long is due to the harsh environments that man faced. This of course does not take Egypt into account though. The environment of that region changed from wild forests into a harsh desert, and the Egyptians' culture flourished after these changes. This is not considered as a civilization either. Scientists classify this only as a culture. Civilization began when humans learned how to write, not when we learned to farm and build homes. My findings show that the first culture was the Jiahu in China, estimated at about 70,400 years ago. Pictographs were found on turtle shells and bones resemble modern script. These symbols were used in ritual practice, and the Jiahu went through a very long period of sign use. These were determinants that classified them as a culture. Other cultures in the region were developing too, and evidence is being presented that show horse riding developed earlier than thought. Archaeologists find burial sites of humans, with European descent and with red hair, all over the world. Found in America, Asia, and along the Silk Trade route, in the Middle East. Even though science differentiates cultures from civilizations, in Mesopotamia, cultures existed long before any civilization. They were influenced by other areas of the world also, according to what evidence is now showing. Ancient pictographs and wall paintings are not signs of writing. Is it odd though that animals seem to have evolved faster than we humans have through selective breeding? Lord Kelvin claimed that the Earth was not old enough to allow evolution to evolve naturally as Darwin suggested. His book, Degrees, in chapter 24 was what he used as his argument. This though was discredited with educated guesses and assumptions. In turn his critics began learning radiometrics, gravitational collapse, and understanding carbon in the atmosphere. Even though they learned these things, they still could not discredit Kelvin's math, only bring it into controversy. Both Darwin and Kelvin were wrong, but they both contributed to the science we now know. Kelvin did not have the resources available to find out the facts that we now know, even though his math was good. It was eventually found too, that using gravitational collapse and radiometrics produced false evidence as well. We now know about thermal fusion, and those theories are finally put to rest. Though we know so much, Lord Kelvin is still considered the grandfather of quantum mechanics and the laws of thermodynamics. The scientific community seems to have moved away from scientific method to either priori or authority models instead. Most use these methods in order to overcome disagreements. These models are unable to suppress doubts, learned from discovering other societies, both in the present as well as in the past. Supporting the idea that opinions are a matter of taste, comparing perspectives, and what is also agreeable to reason. Authority models are dependent on molds and standards, which are based on a methodology, with specific themes, framework, and ways of thinking that consist of assumptions. Scientific inquiry is a broader array of varied but related ideas that goads and urges. Verbal and exaggerated doubt is fruitless, and the most successful model is scientific method. Purposefully considering itself fallible, but tests, criticizes, corrects and improves itself. In order for someone to learn, he must first want to learn, and proposed conclusions should not hinder inquiries. The idea that people do not truly search for truth, but the ability to subdue doubts, must be the starting point. Through struggle we submit to truth, for the sake of integrity. Scientists are usually required to archive scientific data, entailing detailed experimental procedures, raw data, statistical analysis and source code. This is used to help further research being done by scientists, as well as engineers, who have found new discoveries. When information is needed, the author can easily find it also. As technology has advanced, science has began to use more models that involve classification, probation, and sentential induction. Quick, easy experiments are now preferred over long observations, regulated by economics and time spent on research. With cheaper and less time-consuming experiments, the scientific community combines their findings. These accumulated findings are what scientists refer to as settled science. Settled science is a term that was invented by scientists, in order to retaliate against weather deniers. The whole idea of science is asking questions and inquiries, then answering those questions through experimentation. Abduction presents explanatory content taken from a theory, which also guesses new ideas. Often a well-prepared mind guesses wrong, but moderate amounts of successful guesses are gathered together. Induction is the most fertile but unsecured mode of inference. It gathers guesses now that are chosen according to caution, freedom of restraint and simplicity alone.